now he's trying to pursue you, but he knows you got a baby, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And he told Linda he wanted my phone number, and she said, I can't give you her phone number without asking.
Right.
And he said, well, where does she live? And he found out I lived right behind her at my mom's house. So he came over and asked me to go out. I kept saying no. I said no like 3 times. And the final time I said no, he said, well, you know what? We'll go out early, and you can bring Amber with you to dinner. Who does that?
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah.
So I went, and Amber came, and she was just thrilled to death. And he pulled up in his truck, and we get in, and back then you didn't have the car seat. So she just jumped in and was standing in the middle between us like this, like, hey, let's go, okay. And I'm over here like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want a relationship. I just want to do it by myself.
Right. So
anyways, we went. He asked me where I wanted to go. I said, you wanted to take me to dinner. You choose. So then he looks at Amber, where do you want to go? So we went to Burger King.
Yeah, of course.
And it was okay. So
I love that.
It was awesome. It really was. So we ended up hitting it off, and we hooked up. We got together, and that's where I started experiencing the real partying.
Okay. So he
did it all. Not really all. I don't want to say that. I would say he did coke, a lot of it, but they had to stay up hours and hours on the boat. And
I was going to say a fisherman. That kind of, not to justify it.
I didn't know what I was getting into, but
yeah.
Other than that, he was a very nice guy. He was great. Greater than my husband was.
Yeah.
And he loved my daughter. He took care of her, and it really was good. So time goes on. We get together, we hook up. I end up moving in with him in 1993. And we stayed together forever and ever. And I experienced coke. I liked it a lot. Probably too much. I didn't have to work because he was a fisherman and he made loads of money.
Wow.
And so I was a spoiled brat, you could say. And so I partied a lot. I did a lot of drugs with him. And but my favorite was cocaine and marijuana. I still smoke my marijuana. I used to joke and say, when I'm 80 years old, I'm going to be on my porch rocking back and forth, smoking a joint or smoking a bowl, whatever it was. And I'm glad to say now that's not true.
Right.
That's not happening. So let's fast forward because it was just a partying lifestyle.
Okay. How many years?
Come here, boo. That was my kitty.
I saw.
So we, we got together in 92. And we partied all the way up until 2022. This is where, in 2015, he started experiencing heart trouble.
Okay.
And he had a heart attack, and he was in the hospital for a little while. And because he didn't have insurance, they wouldn't do a stent in his heart. They did a catheter. They went in and they did all that, but they wouldn't put the stent in because we didn't have insurance. But they were in there and they seen where it needed to be, but they didn't do it. So whatever. Anyway, and we continued to party. We partied, and I know it wasn't good because obviously it's hurting his heart. And so we partied, and then he's in and out of the hospital with heart trouble and all that. And then we hit 2022, and the hospital became like a revolving door. It was bad. It was really terrible. And he was a dealer.
He was a what?
A dealer.
Oh, okay.
Of heroin and cocaine.
Oh, wow.
So I'm experienced both now. Yeah. And you can mix that and make a speedball.
I've heard.
I never stuck a needle in my arm, which I can say gratefully, and I'm glad I didn't. And I didn't because I'm scared shitless of needles, even from the doctor. So, but I did snort it. I snorted heroin and I snorted cocaine. I snorted cocaine to stay up. I snorted heroin to go to bed. And then it got to where heroin was my forte. That was what I wanted. But it didn't always make me tired. I mixed it sometimes and have the energy and clean the whole house. But my husband was really sick, and Centera was a revolving door.
Was he still using at this time
Yes.
as well? And was he using both as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
And he never stopped all the way up to the end. It just was the point. But his EFR, ejection fraction rate of his heart, was at the end was 5 to 10%.
Which that means, dumb it down for me.
It's squeezing. So like our heart, when it squeezes and pumps the blood, it's like this.
Okay.
Working. Mm-hmm. His heart was like this. It's not pumping the blood like it's right. So where ours, a good EFR is 50%.
Okay.
So ours is doing this. It's really pushing the blood.
Right. Okay.
His, it was barely squeezing. It was like 5%. It's not hardly moving at all. So with that happening, his organs are struggling because they're not getting the blood, and the fluid in his body started building up. It was water retention. I can't remember what it was called. Congestive heart failure. Oh. Is where the fluid builds up on your body, and so then it really was becoming going to the hospital all the time. So my dad gets sick. My dad
at the same time?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
My dad got COVID before they said COVID was here. But he beat it, and he got well, and he came home. Well, then in February of 2022, he started going downhill. It was terrible. Same thing, but different reasons. Yeah. He didn't party and do any drugs.
Yeah, he was probably older.
He was older. My dad was 80 years old.
Oh, okay.
So he had...
and how old was your husband?
My husband was 60. And they were best friends. My dad and my husband were best friends. So did my dad party? Maybe. But never in front of me.
Oh, that's...
Because him and my husband were very close. So, but I don't want to... I'm not going to say he didn't. He may have.
Right. Just definitely not in the same capacity.
Right. Yeah, okay. Exactly. So, anyways, Dad got really, really sick.
And I'm sorry, let me ask this too. Did Dad know that you had a drug problem?
No, not that problem. Okay. No, he did not. He knew I smoked weed still, but he didn't know about the other stuff.
Okay.
So my dad got really, really sick in March. He was in the hospital for a long time, and there was nothing they could do anymore. There wasn't anything else they could do to make him better. So he came home, probably the third week of March, and he had hospice come into his house, and I'm taking care of my husband in and out of the hospital, and my dad was really bad off. He was going downhill, and it was fast, and my sister called. I was supposed to go to my mom and dad's on a Friday and do a pedicure. This was April 8th. So I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm going to come over about noon and I'm going to do y'all's pedicure. She said, well, Dad ain't feeling real good today. She said, don't come. And I said, are you sure? I said, it's fine. I have time off and I can come and it's okay. And she said, no. She said, don't worry about it. We can do it another day. So I hung up, and I'm kind of baffled, like, she really didn't want me to come over there. So my sister called me, my oldest sister, and she said, Bonnie, you need to come. And I'm like, what's going on? Mom told me no, don't come. She said, you need to come. She said, Dad's unresponsive. And I said, what do you mean he's unresponsive? She said, he's not talking to us. He doesn't even know who we are. And I just seen him a week ago, and he wasn't like that. But anyway, so I go to their house, and my dad's in his room. The hospice had just left, and he's so I go in and I say hi to him, and he kind of looks up and he said, Bonnie. So he did recognize me. Right. He knew who I was. And he kept trying to get up, and I was like, Dad, what's wrong? And he was in Depends, and he hadn't been in Depends before. So I looked at my mom and my sister, and I said, what is this? What is going on? And my mom said he hasn't been able to get up and walk to the bathroom since Monday. So why am I just now finding out? Because you're taking care of Randy, and we didn't want to upset you. Well, this is my dad. Yeah. So I told Mom, I picked him up.
And you didn't live far from them.
No.
Yeah, you were pretty close. And yeah. Can I ask, where were you in your walk with Christ at this point? Did you know Jesus? Did you have a relationship?
No.
No?
Not at all.
Yeah.
He was not part of my life. I mean, he just wasn't there.
Yeah.
So, well, let's just say I wasn't asking him to be there. He was probably there.
Well, he had to have been there, right?
He was there, but
or else you wouldn't be sitting here today.
Yeah, he was there, but he wasn't. I wasn't talking to him and asking him to guide me or help me.
Was your mom or your dad or anybody? Nobody. So there was really no like introduction into religion into your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he, when I picked him, I lifted him up because he wanted to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked him up to take him to the bathroom, and I told my sister to take the pins off. So when she dropped it, it was like dark red, dark like blackish red stuff, and it wasn't poop.
Right.
And I looked at my mom and I said, "How long has this been happening?" She said, "What is it?" And I said, "Mom, this is not feces.
Yeah.
This is something else."
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh my gosh." And so I'm feeling my dad's pulse, and I could barely feel it. So I told my sister to take it away. She sat a truck tail under him, and I sat him back down. And I'm talking to him. And my dad had deep brown eyes. And his eyes looked almost gray. And I'm thinking, what in the world? I didn't know. I didn't understand what was going on. So I told my mom, we need to call 911. She said, he don't want to go to the hospital. Well, we're going anyway, because I don't know how to fix what's wrong right here.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what's wrong.
Yeah,
I just know something's wrong.
So they came, and they couldn't even get a blood pressure on him.
Oh, no.
It was awful. So we ended up at the hospital, and the nurse came in and said that he was at the end of life. He was in organ failure. And what was coming out was organ stuff, like his kidneys were failing and his bladder was failing, and so it's coming out as blood because it's not filtering. Nothing's filtering and doing its thing. And she said we could do comfort care. He was already on hospice.
Yeah.
We could do comfort care. We could do
Was he acting in pain, or did he?
No,
he just
never acted like he was in pain.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because I had just seen him a week before. He was okay.
Right.
So we ended up going with comfort care, where he lays in the hospital bed all day, and they did an IV, and they gave him morphine and Ativan. Morphine to be pain-free, and Ativan to calm the anxiousness. So I leaned over to my dad in the emergency room when they got him all hooked up. I was really mad. I was sad and I was angry, and the doctor came in to give him another dose of morphine, and I said, "So you're just gonna sit here and keep pushing the morphine until he dies, right?" And he said, "Well, that's not what we're doing." He said, "We're trying to make him as comfortable as we can in his passing, because he's passing, obviously." So I was angry. I was very angry. I was so upset.
Yeah.
So I told my dad I had to go outside. I said, I need to go outside. So I leaned in and I gave him a hug, and I kissed him, and I told him I love him. And he looked at me and he opened his eyes and he said, "I love you too." And my mom said, "Did he talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah, he told me he loved me too." And she said, "Well, he hasn't talked to us in a couple of days, and I'm sorry."
Yeah, what do you, you didn't make him.
No, he did it on his own.
Yeah.
So I went outside, and when I went outside so I could do some heroin.
So you could what?
Do some heroin.
Oh, okay.
Sniff it.
Yeah.
And I called my girl that did the white, and she came, and she fronted me $1,000 because I didn't have money on me there.
Right.
So I went in the bathroom and I did my thing, and I snorted some coke. And then I'm up. I'm ready to sit with him by his bedside until he's
Whenever.
done. Yeah.
Right.
So I went up in the waiting room, and I'm sitting there, and my mom wants food, so my sister left to go get it. And I didn't want any. Of course, when you're doing coke, you don't want no food.
Yeah.
So I didn't want none. And so my sister left to go get it, and she comes back and she gives everybody in the waiting room their food. It was all family in there. And then she goes back into Dad to dad's room to give my mom her dinner, and she looks at my dad and she said, "He's not breathing." She said it loud. So she called the nurse, and he was gone. And when he was passing, I was partying. It kind of was sad, but so I left the hospital and I went home, and I was with my husband, and I told my husband that he was gone, and it was hard, and I was crying, and then my husband is sick and he needs to go to the hospital. So I really didn't grieve my dad that much because my husband was so sick. So I took him to the hospital, and he was in there. It was the end of April. I can't remember the day. It was after Easter.
This is your husband?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he was in the hospital for probably 7 days. My dad's service came. My dad passed away on April 8th. They had a service on the 15th. My husband was in the hospital still. So I went to my dad's service, and it was terrible. And I was high as gas because I was just dealing everything that was going on. I was trying to numb the pain.
Drugs were your God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So after the service, I went back to the hospital. No, I didn't. After the service, my daughter had went to the liquor store and got a fifth of Crown. So I helped her drink that fifth. And I hadn't drank since like 2015. And I drank it with her, and I didn't even feel the effects of the alcohol. And maybe it was because of the drugs. I didn't feel them. But when we went to the house, to my house, I talked to Randy on the phone, and I told him that I was really tired and I was sad and I couldn't deal with it right now. I was gonna go to sleep. So he said, okay, but I didn't go to sleep. I stayed up and party all fucking night. And then the next day, we went to the hospital, and keep going. It's a revolving door, back and forth, back and forth. So May 1st, he said, I don't want to be here no more. I said, what do you mean you don't want to be here no more? I just lost my fuck dad. You're not going too. But we knew time was coming. So we took him. He said he wanted to go home. He didn't want to die there. And I said,
At the hospital?
Yeah. I said, well, what makes you think you're going to die anytime soon? And then the nurse that was in there, she was like she wasn't a hospice nurse. She was a grieving nurse or something. And she told me that, the end is here. Then it's not going to reverse. No, okay, great. That's just what I need. So we brought him home on May 1st. He had hospice care coming. And the only way hospice could come is if Amber was there. Because I couldn't move him. I couldn't lift him. I couldn't turn him. I couldn't do all that stuff. So Amber was with me. And so we took care of him from May 1st to May 24th. So in this time, I'm so busy taking care of him that I didn't grieve my dad. Because I was too busy with him. Not that it's a bad thing. I wanted him to stay. And he was in bad shape. He got to where he couldn't communicate. And I'm partying. And he's partying. And I'm holding the shit for him to party while he's laying in the hospital bed dying. And I'm snorting it up as much as he is. I was going to get it and bringing it back. And yeah. So he passed on May 24th. And it was the 23rd. I was sitting with him. I'd lay in the bed with him for hours. I mean, I wasn't tired. I was awake.
Yeah.
Weirdly awake.
Yeah.
And he, I leaned over. Before that, right before that, the hospice nurse came, and I was outside. I was a mess. I was crying. I was to pieces. And she came out and asked me if I gave him permission to die. And I said, hell no, I'm not going to give him permission. No, I don't want him to go. And she said, well, it ain't getting better, but you need to tell him that you're going to be okay if he goes. If he lets go and goes to the light, you're going to be okay. And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to be a fucking wreck. And she said, yes, but you're going to be okay. So that night, I talked to my daughter and I told her we need to give him permission. She said, what do you mean permission? That's what the nurse said. So I went to the mailbox and went to the neighbors because they were really good friends, and I was telling the neighbor, so she had her talk with him. And then when I came in, she went to the neighbors and was hanging out, and I talked to him, And I told him that he knows it's the end. There's nothing they can do. And he said, yeah, I know. And he said, I don't want to leave you. And I told him, I said, but it's okay if you do. I said, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be all right. And the grandbabies will be okay. And it's okay to go. So I stayed with him that night until like 4 in the morning. And I kissed him and I went and laid in my bed. And Amber came about 7 o'clock and she said, let's go.
So he was waiting on you to...
Yeah. I couldn't believe it. And I did talk to God sometimes during that time, and I told him that I wished he would take him and not make him suffer. But if he could make him better, let him stay.
Right.
But then when I gave him permission that I would be okay, he went. And that's when I spiraled. I was at the drug dealer's house every day, and I was snorting heroin, and I was doing cocaine. And then Amber came over and said, Mom, why don't you move in with us? Because she could tell something was going on, but she wasn't positive what was going on. I said, no, I'm not moving out of here. I'm staying here and blah, blah, blah. And your dad paid this place off so I could have a place to live, and I'm not going nowhere. So I didn't. I stayed home.
For how long?
I didn't last long. It was from May
2023 or 2022?
It was 2022, and I made it until, and I'm partying now. Every day I'm doing a gram of heroin and a half gram of coke, and I'm mixing it, and I'm doing it, and so I made it from May of 2022 to September of 2023.
Wow.
September of 2023, I was trying to get clean on my own. I stopped for 16 days. Part of that 16 days is because I was in the hospital with pneumonia. I couldn't party. I couldn't ask my daughter to go get me the shit. I'm laying there but I had put it away and not mess with it for a couple of days. But anyway, I was in the hospital. I got out of the hospital and I was weak. They didn't never get me up. So I came home. I'm weak as shit. I'm trying to get on my feet and do my thing. And my little house was here. I had just got this house. And we were doing the work in it. We had the electricity put in it. We did the insulation. And there was a little bit more of insulation to buy. And JD, my son-in-law, wanted me to go with him to get it. And I said, no, I'm just going to hang out. I said, I have a client I'm going to go see and do a pedicure on. Really, I wasn't going to see a client. I wanted to go get one more. So I could pick myself up and have that energy to do what I need to do. Just one more. One more.
Yeah. Last time.
So this is it. It's gonna fix me, and I'm gonna be okay.
Yep.
So I go and see my man, and I got a half gram. And when I got it, I did it right there in his driveway. Some of it, not all of it. And I just took the little bread tie and 2 quick bumps. That was it. Twisted it up. It was in my hand, and I got on the highway coming back home. I was at J. Clyde on 64 coming back west to Williamsburg. And I made it to Jefferson exit, which is probably 2 miles away, maybe. And somebody got on the highway behind me, and I don't know if I was driving funny, if I was driving too slow. I don't remember what I was doing. But I remember he called 911 and told him there's this driver on the road and whatever's happening. And
it was your bad shot.
Well, I'm cussing myself on the driving, and I look up at the sky, and I'm like, God, I have a problem. I am an addict. I have an addiction to heroin and cocaine, and I can't stop on my own. And I need help. And I don't know how to ask for help because I didn't want to ask my daughter because I thought she would be mad at me. And she was all I had. So I kept driving, and I'm still doing the shit, driving down the road. And I finally put it away, and I made it to Lee Hall exit. It was mile marker 246. And I was telling myself I needed to pull over because I felt myself fading and going away from here. The last thing I remember was telling myself I needed to go over on the side and get my shit together and come back. Well, what happened was I overdosed. And I did leave the road. And I went up the hill at that exit, or that mile marker, towards the fence of a weapon station. And my truck went over a pine tree and went up another pine tree, and I cartwheeled, bumper over bumper, and landed on my side, and I rolled 2 times and landed on my wheels. But I don't remember none of it. The state trooper told me all this, because the guy that followed me pulled over when I went off the road.
Oh my.
And sat there and waited.
What an angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it happened, he asked the police, the dispatch, did they want him to go to the car, and they said no. Just sit where you are. And
Yeah.
so I don't know who showed up first, if it was the ambulance or the state trooper. But the ambulance worked on me on site for about 30 minutes. And
now this is after you had like the first real moment with God where you were like, take this away, I'm done.
Give me the.
You had never went down that road before.
Never.
Wow.
It was the first time.
Wow.
And that's what happened. So,
he said, okay, yeah, I
he
got
had
you.
never answered me that quick before. But I'm not. It's sad that it happened. It sucked because I lost my truck, and that truck wasn't my husband's. My dad bought it for him and didn't have to pay him back.